Meeting to order. It is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. It's 10 a.m. and we're here to discuss federal issues with Mark Kilmer from Senator
Jim
Rish's office.
Yep. So I'm Mark Kilmer. I'm the regional director for Senator Jim Risch. So thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm happy to hear of anything you would like to talk about. I think one of the things that was mentioned to me earlier was Secure Rural Schools funding, SRS funds. Senator Risch very much recognizes the importance of SRS funding, especially for counties like this, Boundary County, Idaho County. There's quite a few Idaho counties that are very reliant, the county side and the school district side too, important for both. So on that, last year the Senate did pass, I think it was unanimous, passed a reauthorization. The House didn't, and so right now there is no SRS authorization. And as I understand it, there's a year lag, so there's a little bit of time, but not much to work on something. Senator Crapo is one of the leads on that. He's on the relevant committee for that. So Senator Crapo, the delegation, takes the lead on it. Although Senator Risch is very supportive of those efforts and they work in tandem. He tried to get it considered by the Senate, I think last month. Didn't have enough time for that. They're going to try to do it during the budget reconciliation process, during we passed the Senate and House passed the budget bill, so now they'll have a reconciliation bill with all the tax cuts and finance things. And Senator Crapo seems fairly confident that they could get SRS in that reconciliation bill, but it's not guaranteed. The issue is much more the House. There's more resistance in the House. Concern Eastern states. This is welfare money for Republican states. That's kind of what they think. Although it's not. You have a lot of federal land. The federal government doesn't tax that land, so obviously there needs to be some sort of revenue. There is also, we've heard a little bit of possible concern from the Trump administration. Just they see this as federal education money. They don't really differentiate it. And I don't think it's a firm concern, but there has been some whispers of that about, well, what is this? Why is this money going to schools? So there needs to be some education there. Our office does have a lot of contact with the Trump administration. Fortunately, right now, there's a lot of turnover and a lot of new people there. Just a lot of chaos, for lack of a better word. So our office does have sometimes some trouble reaching folks and talking to them. There's just a lot of new people, and this is not their highest priority, the Trump administration, SRS funding. So that's a little bit of a thing they're dealing with too. But our offices are committed to working to restore SRS funding. So that's the latest I can tell you on that.
Okay.
But so I guess I didn't quite realize that you told me earlier that it's all of your road money is essentially SRS money.
40% of it.
Yeah.
Public roads.
Yeah. So how much do you get then? How much did you get last year?
Almost 2 million, isn't it?
Yeah, close to that. I believe close to 2 million.
Yeah, I mean, I think there may still be some revenue, but it would be dramatically reduced. I think Idaho County was looking at about 90% reduction, and they I think are probably the most, in Idaho, the most heavily dependent on SRS funding, because I think they have the most federal land and
most federal land.
I mean, they would be devastated. I think, I think everyone would be. But I mean, there's a national article that came out today about it, and they talked about Idaho County and just how much they would be reduced. So it's a very important issue. We realize that, and the clock is ticking. I mean, if it doesn't get resolved, then that money will lapse, and that's.
Do you know when it lapses?
Well, I mean, it's already not reauthorized, and again, I think there is, there's a year lag essentially, and so if they pass it, they'll make up for it, so it's not that way, so it's kind of retroactive. But if it doesn't pass, then essentially next year, I believe, then you would start getting it. And we, in the past, that SRS reauthorization has not been timely, and it's been hard to set budgets, and the federal year does not work with your year. We would like a permanent reauthorization. That's what we push for. We understand that it causes you all a lot of trouble and heartache, and you can't plan your budgets around it because you don't know what's going to be there. And we always say, "Oh, it'll be there," but then it wasn't, and now it's not. And so,
So what's the main pushback for the in Congress of why they don't want to pass it? Is it because they think it's it's welfare, not makes it money that.
Yeah, largely. In the Senate, Ron Wyden from Oregon, very liberal Democrat, but he understands the importance of it, and he's the one that with Larry Craig 25 years ago
Yes.
got this passed. So in the Senate, the Democrats understand it; they defer to Ron Wyden. In the House, there just isn't that champion where people understand that this is not welfare for red states. This is making up for the fact that we have so much federal land. I mean, New Jersey or Maryland or Pennsylvania just don't have that federal land, so they don't understand the dynamics. They don't understand that, in the county of Pennsylvania, everything's taxable. I mean, 98% or 99%. Whereas here, how much is taxable? How much is your taxable?
80% is about 82. I think
82% is public land.
Public
68% is U.S. Forest Service. Yeah.
I mean, with the Idaho land, it's even more difficult because you know. So,
Right.
Yeah, no. Phil Lampert's always talks about that down there because they have a lot of Idaho IDL land down there. So at least with federal land, you get a little bit when it's authorized. But yeah, I mean, they don't understand the thing, and then they look at it and like, well, let's just give them money to these places that say they don't want federal money, so let's just give them what they're asking for, which isn't federal money, and it's a harder fight than the House.
Is there any discussion about more timber sales in federal lands?
Yeah, there's definitely more discussion. President Trump did send an executive order about that. The problem is that, as you all know, timber sales take a long time. I mean, just even if the Forest Service is willing to do it, it's a 3-year process. Whenever if there's lawsuits, and if there's lawsuits, even longer. And if they have the biologists, if they have the engineers, which even before the Forest Service was having a lot of trouble just getting the Fish and Wildlife Service to sign off on that for the biologists and getting engineers to do the roads, because engineers can get a lot more money elsewhere. And they were trying to find ways to use outside entities to do that, and I think they're having some success. But the laws need streamlined. NEPA, just all the lawsuits need to be, the cause of action under the federal environmental laws need to be reformed so that people can't sue over everything. It'd be nice if we could do a timber sale in 2 years, which, I mean, I have forest land, you just call up the logger and, okay, I can be there next week. Whereas Forest Service is, in 2 years would be great if we could do that. So yes, there is a push for that, but even if all that stuff happened tomorrow, it's not going to.
No, it's not going to. Yeah, it's going to take years.
And there's not as much infrastructure here as there used to be, and so you go by the IFG mill in Chilco, they look pretty full. I think they handled, if the Forest Service was doing 3 times as many timber sales, and it's just a tough situation. But I mean, ultimately, it would be best if the 25% revenue you got from timber sales, that's what it used to be. That would be ideal. But getting back to that is not going to
be quick.
It's not going to be quick. But yes, timber sales need to happen just not for the revenue, just for forest health.
Yes, exactly.
This county especially knows what a devastating wildfire does. And so it's, I know you're having a lot, the I-90 project, the Forest Service. I mean, I think they are trying here.
They are.
Have a good Forest Service that tries as much as it can to cut, and they use the Good Neighbor Authority a lot with the state of Idaho. And that really does help with some of these smaller projects and some of the timber sales. But the capacity is kind of limiting just with what they are restricted at by federal law. So that is what needs to be changed. And that is something that we are working on, but that is a much longer process. And it gets caught up in all the environmental things. Oh, they just want to clear cut forests. And it's not about that. Even if it is, sometimes places need clear cut. They just don't understand management. So,
Now the Equal Justice Act, have they looked at that? Are they, because that's what's...
It's something that is definitely being discussed. I mean, there's... we hear about that a lot from folks up in Bonner County, especially. There's Travis Thompson up there. He's met with our office a few times, and it's something that needs to be looked at too, because it's not just the bureaucratic things; it's the ability to sue and delay timber sales. And the nice thing around here is we have a lot of good cooperation with the collaboratives. The local environmental groups, ICL, all of those will sit down and they will talk, and they will, the tribe. They will get their objections out ahead of time, and the Forest Service will work with it, and industry will say, well, we don't have to go to near this creek or whatever. And you get the local groups, and they're fine with it. But then it's these national groups, especially out of Montana, that will sue because it looks good on a fundraising matter. I mean, and that's all it is. They're not really about if it was about the environment, the local environmental groups, the people who live here would be signing off on it. But they want to make a big stand out of it, essentially, to please our donors. Is my take on it. And it doesn't matter. They can sue. It doesn't, even if they don't live here or whatever. So it's a real big.
And the Equal Justice Act pays them to sue.
Yeah, it'll reward them. And so there's an incentive to be litigious, which there should not be. There should be much more of an incentive to be collaborative. Like, I mean, that it was very much, people were at loggerheads in the 90s. There were the timber wars, and everybody was, fighting each other. And then they did a collaborative, and, that process started setting those up 20 years ago. And they really do seem to have lessened a lot of that local conflict. It's not perfect, but it's better than it used to be. Yeah. But yeah, no, we are very much in favor of more timber sales. Very much in favor of SRS. So, are there any other federal? How's EPA working with the county?
Right now, one of our biggest questions that we're having is our air quality.
Yeah.
And did they? I'll let Jan speak real quick.
Jan's been in contact about that.
President Trump rescinded that rule. So it's back to 12.0, and we are way within that.
Yeah.
So we're not in danger anymore, no matter what they try to tell you.
Okay.
But it's an ongoing concern because I mean, what Trump undoes, people can redo.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
That's right.
And especially, again, I talk with Jan predictions about it, especially Pinehurst and some of those issues. I think we're good for now. But obviously, if the Bunker Hill mine starts going again, if you start getting some more, stuff going, down the road it might be a concern. But I think for 4 years you're probably good.
Now they were talking about. Do you remember about raising the lead levels on the?
The lowering
They're
it.
lowering it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've talked with Sharon, who's brought that up a lot, Sharon Mosley. Because it's more of an advisory level, where it wasn't. They weren't going to mandate it, but they were going to say, "Well, you should go and look at it." I mean, she was concerned that essentially what the creep would be that they would eventually mandate it, and then you'd have to go and dig a little bunch of people's. I mean, you've done all this work to a certain level, and then there's been so much work done, and I have to go redo all of that. The cost as well as the the impact on the community is So she brought that up, I think maybe 2 years ago with us, and we've been looking at that, and we haven't heard anything new about that. I should probably talk to her some more, but it's definitely a concern.
Because I know it started in Montana.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, but again, it was much more like, oh, well, you should go back and see, and it'd be great if you could get it. But if it starts out like a suggested, eventually that's going to be codified. I don't know whether it's next year.
And whatever they say, everybody just jumps up and down like, oh, it's going to happen. That's we're worried.
Well, and there would probably be some pushback from our local residents here because they already went through it once, and you've got your 6-inch and you've got your greenings. They would then go back, or even some 12-inch that didn't have the barrier, go back and remediate that. That right there, they'd be.
Yep.
They would be upset with that.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taken a long time for tensions to calm down over the EPA here, and that would, I think, set them off. I mean, not at the level they used to be, but it would definitely upset a lot of people, and people would be like, no, we're not doing that. And there's, again, it's everybody. It seems to be going fairly well from everything that I hear. We'll get a call every once in a while about someone that's upset about what the EPA is forcing them to do on their land, and we understand that. We try to work with them, but on the whole, we don't get a lot of complaints. But we certainly would, I think, if people were like, "Well, they're going to come and tear up my yard again. Why are they doing that?" So.
Now, and I know we had an issue with our floodplain area.
Yep.
And that's been an ongoing issue, and you've probably heard about that.
Yeah. I've talked to the city of Kellogg about that. And I think what I understand is it's kind of a 3-part process: Kellogg, Pinehurst, and then down this way toward Wallace. FEMA is a very difficult agency to work with.
Mhm.
That's just on many other things. I've tried to reach FEMA. They're very hard to work with. We would like to see them work more quickly with the city of Kellogg on that. And of course, Pinehurst and then, down this way. So yes, I think Kellogg's going to be writing a letter about that to FEMA, and I think we'll be supporting that letter and just please get an answer. Please expedite this. Please start working with them. The Corps of Engineers has the data.
Yeah.
Let's change. But FEMA is a government agency set by bureaucrats. They're protected if they don't do anything. If they do something and then something happens, the person who signed on that is going to get blamed. So they have an incentive to slow walk it, which is exactly what it sounds like it's doing. It sounds like Kellogg finally gets them the answer, and then FEMA says, well, what about this? And then they have to hire the engineer again. So that's not the way it should be. They should get the answer forward. So,
Do you feel like under the current administration is FEMA experiencing much organizational change?
I think everybody's experiencing organizational change. I have not heard directly about FEMA. That's one of the ones we haven't, but FEMA is so difficult to work with. I try not to contact them unless necessary. So, I'm sure once we get that letter from Kellogg, we start getting in that process, we will hear that. Then again, it could be good too. There could be somebody going out the door that just says, this is the right thing to do, and sign it, and what happens in 5 years, I'm not going to get blamed for. So maybe it'll work for us if there is some organizational change and there's people leaving, but it might work again, if that's shuffling around. It's maybe part of the problem too is, Kellogg will submit stuff and then it's a new person in there, and all of a sudden people asking new questions or different questions, and it's, all the changeover has seemed to slow things down too. So, I can't predict what's going to happen there, but it is a problem. So, and there have been a lot of upheaval in other agencies. I suspect FEMA is probably the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other federal issues of concern? Just general issues?
I know our grant, the grant process, and one of the things is what we're worried about is our fire mitigation grants, because we really rely on those to protect our communities, and they're kind of held up. And right now we're looking at a state grant, and that's all we have for this year. And so, and the problem we have right now is we have this I-90 corridor that the Forest Service is wanting to do, and we have, the county's kind of responsible for all the private properties that go along with it, and so we need to be proactively getting out there and getting those properties done. But without the funding, we're unable to do it. And then you see what happened to California, and everybody's worried about fire, and it's serious here, and that's one of the things that we worry about is without that funding, and if we can't get stuff done this summer, that just prolongs it.
So you're talking specifically about the fire mitigation, like federal fire mitigation grants?
Yes.
Okay. But you don't have any this year that are being held up, or are they?
They are being held up.
Yes.
Okay. If you have specific ones that are being held up, email us, and our office can at least contact. Would that be FEMA or I don't know, or Forest Service? Which agency is it with?
Well, part of it is SRS. That's where Bill is funded through scrap fire mitigation of SRS.
Okay.
And then there's other, CWDG and those types of grants. I think that one is just on hold right now for review.
Okay.
It's not one that's been funded, but it would be 5 years worth of substantial work. And then there's the additional for the I-90. So those two would work tandem to make sure that everything is done appropriately.
Yeah, no, if you can give me the specific kind of title or number and which agency it's with, our DC office can call back. We've been able to do that. We can't say we can shake it loose or anything like that, but we can at least let them know that we're interested in it.
So I'll have my fire mitigation guy go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And the other part is, it's statewide though, it's just the change up in the shift of focus within the statewide reimbursements, as reimbursements have been held up for some of the IDL grants.
But yeah, anything with the state, we can. I'll give you Jacob Geringer's number, and you can harass Jacob about that. But yeah, for the feds, we can definitely see what we can do. We can try. But again, things are a bit chaotic now in DC. So
I understand that.
We hope in 6 months that won't be, but we know there's a lot of stuff that on your level and other levels, people would like to move much quicker than 6 months. But yeah, we hope the things will get a little calmer, and there'll be people that'll be there for a while and know better what they're doing. So it just takes time. So, people. Yeah, we're happy to help anything like that. Any sort of federal grants or any sort of federal money that is being held up, we can at least call. We can make inquiries and try to get you an answer if you're not getting an answer at least, and then they do know that we're interested in that, and that counts for a little something, I think.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
When do you think the next, back on SRS, when's the next decision point? When's the budget reconciliation process going to be completed, do you think? Or
trying to predict stuff now. It's very difficult under the Trump administration, especially. I think the hope is that they will start with the budget reconciliation package in May. Hopefully by June they could have something. But the House problem is not as much the Senate. The Senate, the votes are there. They can pass by 50 votes. There's a bit of a margin there. Mike Crapo's plays a big role in that, and so a lot of our priorities will be pretty well protected. The House, there's a much narrower margin in the House, and if they lose 2 or 3 votes, it can't pass there, and so they have to be much more careful there, and things are moving. Usually the Senate's the one that moves slower. Right now the Senate is the one that can move more quickly, and the House is, if they lose Thomas Massey or they lose somebody like that, all of a sudden it's very difficult, and so it's just much more complicated there. So hopefully by June. Hopefully we would know by June. And if SRS is included in the package, we probably know that by May. I would think that would be something that, if it's going to be in there, it's going to probably be in there by May. And then what they put together will probably pass. But we will know what's in the package. Everything is just it's very hard. It's much more harder to predict now. But that's my timeline, and that can change tomorrow. I mean, I can check my phone and check the news, and everything changes very quickly. So nothing I say should be, do not rely on anything I say. Do not rely on it for your budgets, anything like that. But that's my prediction, is probably in June, maybe early June. So, okay.
I know Commissioner Dosh has been working with this, but the funds that the Forest Service gives the Sheriff's Department, like $10,000. Is there any question you can ask him of how we can get more funding? That's
on our law enforcement budget.
Yeah.
So we're currently in a situation where we provide the Forest Service with their law enforcement services through our Sheriff's Department. Our Sheriff's Department we're not able to charge what it actually costs us because the Forest Service just says they don't have the budget. But we're still providing the service at a loss to the taxpayers. What's the answer to that? I mean, our answer is if we don't do it, then there'll just be lawlessness in the forest. But it's costing. We're not even able to recoup actual cost.
Yeah. I could talk to the Forest Service. I could talk to the Forest Supervisor and see. I suspect they'll say, well, we'd love to pay them more. We don't have the budget. I suspect that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying to you. That's what they'll say. Well, Congress appropriates, so give us more money. That a lot of time when you talk to a government agency, that's what they say is they need more money. I could definitely mention though that it's a concern here. And just kind of see how they do that. I'm not sure if they do that with every county or in the year.
I don't know that.
Well,
but they've been doing it here a long time.
And honestly, the North Fork of the Coeur d'Alene River has become quite a hot commodity in the summertime. It's the very popular, and we've got to have law enforcement up there. And the Joe.
Yeah, we meet with the Forest Service pretty regularly, and they express a lot of concern about that. I mean, it's just, and has been discovered.
Mm-hmm.
Been discovered
Yes.
here. There's a lot of people that are, and it's, like I say, it is. And I know they're trying to devote more resources to get better facilities and better signage, but it's, again, people are going to do what they're going to do. And the trash, and I know the trash has been an issue and things like that. So,
Yeah, it was going to be my second point. The same answer on the trash, that they just don't have the budget, which just leaves the county taxpayer funding a lot of law enforcement and sanitation on federal land.
Right.
Yeah, and I know there was some problem with the Resource Advisory Council that hands out grants for some of those things. So I know some of that was funded through the Resource Advisory Council, but during the Biden administration, they didn't like our appointees because they weren't diverse enough. And so we did have Resource Advisory Council for a while to give that funding. I think that's all been taken care of. And so there may be more opportunities for funding because of that, but I'd have to talk with probably Ashley about that. But there's definitely something brought up before. It's on their radar. They are concerned about it. I think they're at a bit of a loss of what to do though too.
See, one of the things, like 20 years ago, there was a lot more Forest Service, police and staff out in the woods.
Yeah.
And then when they did all those cutbacks, it kind of shoved it back onto the county's taxpayers to do their, basically fund that, to ensure that people are recreating properly and not leaving trash so that's kind of where we're at right now. They've reduced their staff and we relied on it.
And on the other side of that is we definitely hear when there is too much Forest Service law enforcement. And too many staff that are closing down areas that shouldn't be there. So it's one of those things where we hear from both sides. We hear from people that are, they're trashing our property when they're going across it, or they're going on these roads, and people are like, I got a ticket when I shouldn't have, and so, and the Forest Service hears that too. And so that's, so I'm not saying one's right or wrong. I'm just saying that we kind of hear from both sides. Some people think there's too much Forest Service staff in the woods. But no, it's definitely an issue that there's just a lot of land that there's not a lot of personnel for timber sales, for law enforcement, for recreation, for picking up trash. I mean, there just isn't. And so, that is the problem of having a lot of federal land in your county. And
BLM as well. BLM, it's not just the Forest Service. It's, with their lack of staff, they're unable to do the things that they used to. So.
Yeah, no, and you're a little unique and you have much more BLM land in North Idaho than I think most of the county. BLM land is mainly down south here. So it's not in Bonner County or Boundary much BLM land. It's funny, in Cooney County we have a little bit. BLM has a parcel of land right by where I live in Post Falls. Funny enough, does BLM have land? It's right on the river there, but it's just the remnants. But you are unique in that it's a lot of BLM residents here too, and I do know they focus on that. And there's some issues. I know dealt with Jan on some of those issues, some of the BLM land issues. Any other concerns?
No, not really.
Okay.
Did you have any questions?
One question, if I may.
Sure.
Just kind of an educational. I've been reading a little bit on some of the proposed changes. I think it's out the comment for me, and just kind of what you see that meaning. And I'm asking because it affects the ability to apply for grants, to administer grants, and our capacity. And we have some small grants that through 106 that are just onerous with NEPA.
Yeah.
I understand the premise of it, but what are you seeing with what's going on?
Well, I mean, there is a desire, just on all levels, to make government more efficient, and NEPA is a big one. Some of the environmental stuff does get lost in a lot of this other focus on foreign aid and things like that. But there is also a little bit of a consensus among some liberals, too, about NEPA, because they're seeing NEPA get in the way of a lot of their green energy projects. They see that with transmission lines. And so they're understanding, we want to build these things that we like, and all of a sudden these environmental rules are getting in the way. And so there's a little bit more of a consensus about reforming some of the environmental laws. So with the Trump administration's push on efficiency and a little bit of that consensus, I think this is the time to do it. But with so much other stuff going on, it tends to get lost in a lot of that stuff. So I'm hopeful, and Senator Risch is definitely supportive of changing NEPA and streamlining things and making it easier, but I can't make a prediction about that. But it's certainly the right time to do it because there does seem to be a lot of support for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought it was there was a proposed rule change that was out there that's in public comment that closed on the 11th.
Oh, so down to that granular level, I'm not sure. But if you want to send me the specifics, I can look into that. So yeah, so that I mean, yeah, there's lots of rule changes, so that's definitely with everyone. But yeah, on the wider NEPA thing, there really is a lot of permitting reform consensus. But Congress only has so much time to work, and it's and a lot of that has to be changed by law, not just by law. So, yeah.
Did you have any questions, Jan?
No, I have comments. As usual. I just want to commend Mark. He and I have been together for several years starting on the West Fork Pine Creek issue. He was out there on the initial tour with BLM and the timber owners. And he's been following that and helping. And then personally, I'm in a mining nonprofit based in California, and they sent myself and another representative to Washington, D.C. to lobby a proposed NDAA amendment that would be regarding Trump's 4 executive orders on rare earth, strategic and critical minerals. And we proposed a way that would reduce the regulatory overburden on the miners, and so they can get at and shorten up the permitting time and all sorts. But I told Mark about it, and he was key in getting us into a half-hour meeting with our natural resource guru in D.C. And our hope is that Senator Risch will sponsor this amendment to the Energy and Natural Resource Committee, which is chaired by Chairman Lee, who is very, he likes that amendment. And so we're hoping that Risch will do it. So I'm going to keep pestering.
Yeah, you can always keep pestering.
The whole chain. But he loves Shoshone County.
Jen's taking me on some fun field trips. We've gotten out there and
oh yeah,
we've gotten back to a few places.
Well, that's good. I appreciate it.
So Jen's a very good ambassador for the county, and she so she's good. But no, on the mining issue, Senator Risch is very supportive of mining, critical minerals. I mean that's very key, and there's a big focus on that. So it is something we're working on too. It would be nice if Bunker Hill reopened. It would be like sunshine. But we work with Idaho Strategic Resources a lot. I talked with John Swallow. I know they have the mine of Murray, I think.
Yep.
And so, we are we do as much as we can on the mining issue and trying to we work with Hecla quite a lot too. Our chief of staff, his dad used to work for Hecla, so he actually grew up here in Wallace. So we are. Wallace and mining is very near and dear to the heart of the Risch office. So,
good. I appreciate that.
Okay.
And I wanted to add that Sunshine Mine has antimony and an antimony refining plant that they're in the process of remodeling. They are going to process the Stibnite mine's antimony. These are the only 2 antimony sources known in the U.S. that are government contracts, and this is a really good thing for the valley.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Really good thing.
Yeah. All right. Anything further?
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
No, well, thanks for the
Thank you very
opportunity.
much.
I appreciate
and thank you, Jan, for coming in.
Yeah.
And Colleen for your questions.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.